going on, everybody? This is Jake Matthews here, your intrepid host and game master for the new Unbound Heroes tabletop RPG YouTube channel. This is our very first inaugural episode of what will hopefully be many more, but not unless you like and subscribe right now. But you might ask, why should I like and subscribe if I haven't even seen your show yet? And if all you've done for me is throw up a flashy intro with a cool beat, well, if you ask that, you probably would be right. And it's a totally understandable question. Let me tell you about the show and the channel and a little bit about myself. So my name is Jake Matthews. I'm your game master for this series of shows. It's going to showcase all things miniature board gaming. Not like, small versions of Candyland or Monopoly. No, that is not what I mean at all. What I mean is an epic, story-based, cooperative, or competitive, tabletop board game. It's played with these little amazing pieces of gray plastic that, unless you are a complete psychopath, you have painted up before they hit the table. So friends, I am a sucker for a board game if it has a ton of minis and terrain that you can paint up and put on the table. It doesn't matter if it's D&D or Descent, Hero Quest, Mansions of Madness, Aliens, Call of Cthulhu, Death May Die. If it has minis and it does not involve a shoe or a thumbtack, then I probably have it or want to play it and want to get it. And if you love those kind of games as much as I do, then you are probably in the right spot. On this channel, I'm going to try to dive deep into those games, some other classics, and mostly just kind of what I have lying around the house, painted but unplayed. Let's be candid. I'm going to try to spice it up a bit where I can with some ambiance, maybe a little bit of improv, some painted terrain, anything else I can think of to try to make this as fun and engaging an experience as I can for you to hang out with me and play some games. I'll try to pack as many game mechanics discussions into the games as I can for you to help see if it's something you would like to add to your table at home if you don't already have it. And I'm going to try to keep my characters alive as long as I can to make that happen. But the real goal here is going to be to build a community where we can kind of all geek out together over these games. I want you to comment, throw your 2 cents in on strategies and maybe some monster takedown tips or what character you think is the coolest if you played the game before or maybe that you want to see on the board. I'm going to try to keep things light, nerdy, and as fun as I can and as fun as the dice gods will allow. So we're going to jump now into the very first episode where I start the playthrough of the Descent 2nd Edition campaign, The Rise of All Goblins, which is the intro campaign to Descent on the Road to Legend app. And if you haven't seen it yet, then the Road to Legend app is an app that allows what was normally a one against many game in the Descent board game into a cooperative thing where the app takes on the role of the overlord and throws in all of the monsters and roadblocks that you'll normally see in a Descent game, keeps track of all of the record keeping, and just generally tracks things for you so you can play it by yourself if you have it, or you can play it with other people if you just want to have a good cooperative game night. But frankly, this was really a way for me to tackle this game, understand it, and frankly, just kind of the editing and structure of the episodes so I could get the hang of that. As you can probably see, I am new to this. I'm not really very experienced in editing, but I have found that so far I really enjoy it. It's been a good learning experience, and hopefully my skills will improve as these episodes go on, and hopefully I get some people to watch the show. As you can see, I'm playing Descent 2nd Edition, which they are already out now with the 3rd edition, and that just shows you how far behind the times I am. So I've had this collection going now since about 2019, 2020. Played it quite a bit. Actually, not really played it very much. It's one of those things that's kind of been gathering dust in my closet. And so I figured, you know what, I'm going to dust this thing off. I love the game. I love the mechanics. And I'm just going to try to make this channel for myself and just see if anybody watches. If they do, great. If not, I'm just going to break out the games and get a chance to put them on the table and get them into action and just have fun doing it. So I'm going to try to edit these things down into a digestible chunk to get rid of all the fluff, edit out all the things don't advance the story so that I can help you enjoy the game and try to get through as much of it as possible in as short a period of time and keep things as engaging as possible. So I really do appreciate if you've watched this far. I appreciate it. And if you can like and subscribe after what you've heard just now, go ahead and do that. If you need to wait until after the video is over, well, I'd prefer you go ahead and do it now so you don't forget. But yeah, let me know how I'm doing in the comments below. If you hear anything, see anything that I'm doing wrong, I probably am because I'm still learning the rules, but I'm going to try to get them as correct as I can. There There are a couple of spots that you will see where I have made a couple of mistakes. It probably did nothing more than just keep me alive a little bit longer, maybe to last until the next episode. So anyway, that's it. Let's get going with Descent 2nd Edition, Episode 1 of The Rise of All Goblins. So in Descent, you have 4 characters that you can play, and they are generally based around the 4 kind of archetypes that you might find if you're a fan of Dungeons & Dragons. You have the magic user, you have the warrior, the kind of rogue scout archetype, and the healer archetype. And the ones I've chosen to play in this adventure are some of the ones that I think are a lot of fun. First up is the warrior, who is Sir Valadier. So in Descent 2nd Edition, much like Dungeons & Dragons and other role-playing games, you have different attributes and different statistics that help the characters or distinguish the characters. And then you have 4 different classes or archetypes that you can choose from. You have a warrior archetype, a magic user, a healer, and then a scout kind of rogue archetype. And within that, you have different classes. So here I've chosen Sir Valadier, who is from the Descent Lair of the Worm expansion, which was a later expansion that came out. And to me, this guy has some serious Chad energy, kind of like Gaston from Beauty and the Beast. If you remember that show, if you have daughters, you probably watched it. But not an asshole maybe like Gaston was in my mind. He seems like a pretty tough dude. He has 4 willpower, which is the one in the bottom left there. You have 3 might, 3 knowledge, which is the book, and then 1 awareness. So that kind of is in line with my vision of this guy as being sort of a jock who lacks self-awareness. His ability, I think, is great. You have a hero ability that you can use once per turn, and then you have a heroic feat, which you can use once per scenario. So in this case, his ability is after the dice are rolled, you can suffer a fatigue to add a surge to your attack roll. And we'll talk more about that as we dive into the game. And then his feat, which he can use once, is he can recover all of his stamina and then perform an attack, which gains an immediate surge and a +3 to his damage roll. So it seems like he should be suffering fatigue quite a bit. He has a great sword starting weapon, which gives him the ability to add extra damage on surges anyway. So he should be kind of incurring fatigue as he fights and then recovering that stamina as his final, kind of feat against the boss monster, attacking and gaining 3 damage. So he's a pretty hard-hitting dude. Moving on to High Mage Quellen, who is the magic user archetype. This is an elf. His stats are pretty good. He has 5 knowledge, which seems in line with his 1 might, kind of a good contrast there. He's very weak, but he is very smart. And his abilities and his feat, I think, are kind of complementary to Sir Valadier in the sense that as long as he's sticking within 3 spaces of another hero, and that hero has fatigue, then Quellen can recover stamina. So so it seems like that so long as Sir Valadier is spending fatigue to do his thing, High Mage Quellen should be recovering his fatigue to be able to cast this spell. So it seems like they're complementary. And kind of the same thing with the heroic feat. He can increase his stamina by 4 for the remainder of the turn, and then at the end recover all of it. So he basically can max out, do a big spell at some point, and then recover all of his fatigue. So he's a geomancer, which is basically a mage that has some pet rocks. Book smart but weak. So overall he makes sense. I think I'm going to be sticking him next to Sir Valadier. It seems like they might be a good duo. Moving on to the rogue, we have Thaden Mistpeak, who is a unique hero. He was introduced in the Manor of Ravens expansion for Descent 2nd Edition. He is a scout rogue archetype. Seems like he has some pretty good agility and battlefield control here. 2 awareness, or 2 willpower rather, 3 might. Not very book smart, but he is pretty aware, so has a 5 awareness. And he can cancel the attack after the dice are rolled and immediately search an adjacent search token. So looks to me like if he makes an attack next to a search token, I think a good strategy might be for him to try to get next to a token, do an attack. If he misses, then he at least gets to search, right? So and I will say that for my playthroughs of the Road to Legend app before, action economy is really big, right? Just like in any kind of role-playing game, you always have to be choosing what actions you're doing and how to do those things in the most efficient way. And I think with Thaden, if you're trying to maximize actions in Road to Legend, then you would want to attack next to a search token, so that way you're not spending an action to search. You're actually just using a failed action in order to use his ability. So if he could get next to or position himself next to a search token, decent chance he might miss one of his actions or fail it. So he could cancel the dice roll and just search, right? So you're actually gaining 2 actions for the price of 1. You're trying to take down a monster, and then, if you screw that up, then he can at least search something and get an action out of that. Because if you spend actions to search, you're not spending actions to attack monsters, and then things can kind of snowball as they progress, because you have these layer action things that start happening, and it can really make life difficult for everybody involved. His heroic feat is pretty good. I think when a monster enters an empty space adjacent to him, that monster is immediately immobilized, and then he can move up to 3 spaces. So you can kind of dip out, stick and move, and try to track down those search tokens. And because he does have a ranged attack, I think he would be the one that would be doing most of the searching, try to position himself near a search token, make an attack, see what happens, and if the monsters close on him, he can dip out and maybe try to get Sir Valadir to take up the slack. Finally, we have Olma Grimstone. She's a dwarf, has a bunch of experience in alchemical experimentation. So she spends her time out in the field searching for strange components, looking for things to make her potions. I kind of picture her as sort of like an artificer from D&D, but one who brews up potions, kind of like a D&D equivalent of maybe Walter White, I think her combined with Thaden would be a good combo, because he can use his ability to search, right? And if she is around, her ability is that she can make the person find a potion. So if she's within 3 of a hero and that person draws a search card, they can just reveal a potion, which I think is kind of, she's like a traveling good luck charm. And some of the potions or some of the search cards can be useless or even harmful. So if she's around, I think she and Thaden would be a good duo. And then her heroic feat is any potions that are found, and once they're used, they can basically be used twice. So during the heroic feat, she can flip one of her face down potion cards face up, and any adjacent hero to her can do the same thing. So if they have healing potions or stamina potions and they've already used them, she can kind of get double the healing benefit out of those potions by allowing them to squeeze every last drop out of the potion bottle. So yeah, I think that's pretty cool. So we have kind of 4 heroes. I think they're all pretty cool backstories. I love the artwork on these, and I think the duos, the complementary powers, I think will be kind of cool with this. So we're going to keep this party together and dive in to the Rise of All Goblins campaign.
Your adventure begins with a note shoved under your door, scrawled in large, unpracticed letters.
Hey, stupid heroes! Everything is terrible! The lair of all goblins has been overrun by wicked things that dumb heroes like you always fight. You must come here, beat them up, and break their things to stop the unthinkable. The end of all goblins! You obviously don't know where the lair of all goblins is, so I drew a map. Don't lose it. Your fearsome master, Splig.
The map is rough, but legible, leading to a place you clearly recognize as the Peregreth Ruins. Having nothing better to do, you gather your gear and depart.
The ancient stones beneath Thaden's feet give way, sending him plummeting into this hidden pit in the ruins that they're investigating at Splig's request. Dust rises as he crashes below, cries echo through the chamber, and then Olma ropes down and sees him knocked out below. The rest of the party ties off a rope, rappels down into the chamber next to Thaden, and Olma revives him. His wounds heal, and he has to roll 2 red die to recover damage. So we roll and get a 5. So he recovers 5 points of damage as he steadies himself, climbs back to his feet, breathing heavily. And as he does so, 2 bottles drop from the pack that he had brought with him, land in the muck below, and he reaches down, searches, pulls them out, and he pulls out the stamina and health potions. And these allow you to recover fatigue with the stamina potion, and of course recover all of your health with the health potion. And as we said, Ulma's ability is going to make this come in very handy, so he stuffs those back into his pocket. Sir Valadier looks around, advances confidently up to the door. He pushes it open, and the darkness within reveals a horrifying sight. The stench of these rotting bodies lying in the northern section of the chamber. The stench is overpowering, and these three zombies lurch forward, their eyes hollow, ravenous, hands out, clawed hands reaching for Sir Valadier as they shamble forward. A single master zombie shuffles it, flanked by two minions, all kind of swaying eerily in unison, driven by this dark will and this glow, brilliant blue in the darkness of the cavern. From what they can see from the light of the torches in the room that they're in, they see a little alcove to the north, a vase of some sort, ornate vase sitting in the darkness, a pile of goblin bodies in the north. Valadier advances forward and looks to the left in the chest, about 5 or 6 feet to his left, just in time for the master zombie to reach him. This zombie drags itself forward. Each step is like a labored shuffle, and it nears him, its head tilted at this sickening angle, its eyes fixed on Valadier, closes the distance, ends up directly beside him, raises a clawed, decayed hand. It lashes out, striking with an unnatural speed. Valadier braces himself, raises the shield as the zombie strikes, his glinting armor absorbing the brunt of the impact. But not all. The zombie claws down his shield and rakes his claws across Valadier's neck. And he rolls 1 blue, 1 yellow die, resulting in 3 damage with 2 surges. And as the zombie's card indicates, their surge abilities allow you to inflict a disease condition, which at the start of their turn, they have to pass a will test. And if they pass, you can discard it, but if you fail, you suffer 1 fatigue. Keep the card until the next time. You keep suffering fatigue, which prevents him from doing the abilities he needs to do to survive in this dungeon. So he feels the disease start to take hold, kind of coursing through his body, slow poison creeping through his veins. And Sir Valadier rolls 1 defense, so the total damage inflicted is 2. Valadier sort of chuckles, the zombie. Is that the best you have, creature? You shall taste my blade. Zombie master is right next to Valadier, and his minion comes up, and you can tell at this point a huge difference in height between the master and the minion. His rotted flesh is kind of hanging off of its face in tatters. One side of its jaw is kind of canted at an unnatural angle. Already within striking distance, this minion lashes out again. Sir Valadier, clawing this putrid hand, grime and filth and decay, attacks, comes forward with unnatural force, and it rolls 1 blue, 1 yellow, and gets 1 damage, 2 surges, and Valadier raises his shield, rolls 1 defense. A cold metal rings as the zombie strikes the shield, and it absorbs the impact with the zombie master and the minions approaching, and all they can hear the echoes in the chamber of the other minion lurches forward out of the shadows, its green rags trailing behind, its eyes fixed on Sir Valadier as it approaches, driven by some dark force. Its ankle its foot has been chewed off by rats, and it is walking like a pirate on a peg leg with a bone sticking out of the remnants of its flesh. Steps click, steps click. As it approaches, it stops just shy of Sir Valadier. Now, these things have a shamble ability, which only allows them to do 1 move action. So if they can't reach the hero on the first round, on the first action, then that's all they can do. But they come inexorably closer with each passing round. These aren't your 28 days later zombies. No, these are your Night of the Living Dead zombies, and they just will overwhelm you with sheer numbers. So Sir Valadier's almost encircled now. He's standing in the doorway, grips tightened on his great sword, and he knows that the next wave of attacks is going to be pretty bad. High Mage Quillen then steps forward, weaving through the shadows till he gets within range of the undead coming, and in his hand he has his stasis rune. It pulses with this greenish light, and the rune is etched with these arcane shapes that swirl in this kind of dance of arcane light holds out the rune as if, kind of like Iron Man points the rune. The master zombie crackles with this greenish light, and light arcs across the distance, swirls through the air. He rolls 1 blue, 1 yellow die, and he gets a 6 range, so you have to be within range, so he gets a 6, so he's easily within that. He rolls a 1 damage and 1 surge, and the surge effect gives him an additional damage. So the rune's light flares as this arcane light strikes the zombie master directly, sending this surge of force rippling, kind of tears open a hole in the zombie's chest. It doesn't actually defend. He doesn't roll. He rolls 1 brown defense die, does not actually defend anything. And it staggers backward just a hair, just a step, as the burning sears into his flesh, and it carves a hole, a cavity in his chest. But whatever undead force is keeping this thing alive and standing still exists, and the zombie stays on its feet. Total damage it dealt was 2. So the zombie master lets out this kind of, is it pain? Is it anger? It all kind of sounds the same. So maybe that's a sound of pain for a zombie? I don't know. Olma Grinstone then steps forward. Her keen eyes are kind of focused on these monstrosities that are approaching. He clutches in her hand these vials that she had kind of whipped together. She kind of poured 2 mixtures together into this vial, and then she chucks it over Quellen's shoulder, and it's etched. The vial is etched with these kind of little symbols, and it smokes like this magical Molotov cocktail. And as it arcs through the distance, it spirals through the air. The glass glints briefly just before shattering on impact as it hits the zombie master's skull, and it explodes in this sickly greenish light smoke. She rolls 1 blue, 1 green die, a 3 range, which she easily makes, gets 3 damage, no surge effects, but it still strikes the zombie. Rolls 0 on the brown die, and the zombie master takes the full force right in the face of this smoky vial as it staggers back, decayed skin sort of melting at this point off of the skin, sizzling where the toxins are kind of burning in like acid, like alien blood. As if you think the stench can't get any worse, the impact of her smoking vials on the zombie's face makes them want to gag, and the room fills with the start of round 2. Our heroes have regrouped. Their focus is now on this 3 undead monstrosities coming before them, and then from the pile of decaying bodies on the far side of the chamber begins to writhe, and another zombie kind of claws its way out of the goblin pile of bodies. This one, weirdly, but a goblin zombie, rises to its feet. It's about 4.5 feet tall. Its eyes are glowing the same sickly blue, and it starts shambling forward. Valadier tightens his grip on this worn greatsword that he has. The blade has these notches on the side of years of use. He got it from his grandfather and his grandfather, but it's been in Sir Valadier's family and was handed down to him as he set out in career. It radiates formal, formidable glow, glints off the firelight torch that they had tossed into the corners. The zombies approached, guttering out now. And even though they're in close quarters, Sir Valadier shoves his greatsword into the zombie master. Valadier's, even though he has a shield, his massive arms allow him to hold this greatsword, spears the zombie master through the gut. Rolls 1 blue, 1 red die. It's 5 damage, and again, no defense. The sword slides all the way through the zombie's body. Valadier shifts downward and slices up. The zombie splits, falls, collapses to the ground. All of whatever unholy essence had brought it to life dissipates. He steps forward. He shoves the first minion zombie away. Rage, overhand arc with the great sword, slices down the minion zombie in front of him. Another blue, another red die. 4 damage. The other zombie rolls 1 defense for a total of 3, but that's all it's needed. And the greatsword cleaves the zombie's head off. Right before it hits, you hear this gurgling snarl. Right before the head leaves its shoulders, spirals into the darkness to the left and collapses again in a heap beside its master. So because of the greatsword ability, or his own ability, which I don't actually do now, but I do later, because he slew both of these zombies, he gets a Valor token. And he steadies himself, takes a moment to resist the encroaching sickness caused by the disease. And I'd forgotten to do this before. He shut his eyes and he rolls a willpower test, and he rolls against his willpower 4, and he gets a 1, so he passes successfully. Now with a test, you have to roll a gray and a black die. He passes. That was a close one, wasn't it, friends? Meanwhile, the third zombie minion lurches forward, closing the last gap between itself and Balladeer. And here it's close enough to where its foul breath. How's it breathing? It's dead, but it has breath. That, or maybe it's just the stench that's rising off his body. Balladeer's gorge rise, and each movement sluggish and relentless as it claws itself forward. Zombie strikes, raking across Balladeer's armor, rolls a 3 damage, 1 shield for Balladeer, and he takes a net of 2 damage. This claw rakes again across his other side of his face. And again, there was no surges, so he didn't have to roll for the disease. Finally, the fourth zombie, Goblin zombie, that clawed its way out of the pile of bodies, claws its way forward, shambles forward, surprising speed. Balladeer turns just in time to kind of see it bearing down on him. It moves faster than the other undead that he encountered, but still, it lunges forward, arms outstretched, fingers curled. Balladeer sidesteps, staggers back, armor shrinks, and then he dodges this attack by just a hair's breadth. He can feel wind of the zombie's claws passing in front of his face. Quick little bug, aren't you? Thaden then moves forward, comes out of the shadows to Balladeer's right, has this hunting knife, weapon that he had honed and sharpened every day as he was looking for those people that took his loved ones. Shoved the knife between the ribs of the zombie minion. Your movements betray you, corpse. He lunges forward. He rolls 1 blue, 1 yellow die, gets 3 damage. There's no defense for the zombie. The blade pierces the zombie's stomach, twists, comes out, disemboweling it. Guts fall out, and he collapses in a pile. And with that, 4 zombies are dead in the span of seconds. It was over quickly. Thaden wipes Ichor off of his knife and sheathes it again. High Mage Quillen comes forward, his robes are whispering softly as he comes up next to his companions. My bad, there was 1 more left. So High Mage Quillen comes up with the Stasis Rune again. This time holds the Stasis Rune out, mutters an incantation. And the light this time is a bluish arc of pure energy that streaks across the short distance between him and the other zombie. Again, a blue and a yellow die, 6 range, 3 damage, 1 shield, so a net of 2. Arcane Blast hits the zombie squarely in the face, shears off the side of its face, but it still remains standing. Olma then moves up to Sir Balladeer. She sees his wounds. She says, "Oh, Balladeer, you look hurt." And she quickly whips together an elixir and tosses it to him. "Yeah, this should bind some of your wounds. Down this quickly now." She hands him the elixir. He looks down. "Thank you, my dear." Grabs it. He knows Olma cooked up something. "When you're ready, just take a swig and, roll for it. Heal your wounds." "Of course, my dear, of course." So he takes the elixir token, and and again, the pile of zombies twitch and shift, and another zombie takes its place, rises out of the heap. This time, its eyes settle on Thaden. It shuffles close, closes the gap, reaches out with that same decayed hand, swipes at him, rolls 1 blue, 1 yellow die, and gets 3 damage. Thaden's able to dodge the most of it, but it does streak and gash across his chest and scratches 2 damage. More than that, it's Sir Balladeer's turn. He raises his greatsword high, swings it across, and Thaden can hear or feel the sword coming right over his head. Rolls 4 damage, no defense, and again, this time his aim is true. Takes the zombie's head clean off, and the gout of whatever ichor was inside the zombie's body splashes up onto Thaden's face, and he kind of wipes it away with his hand, with the back of his sleeve. It's Thaden Mistpeak's turn. Glances away from the zombie that had just collapsed, moves toward the chest that he spied over to the left. It's nestled in kind of the shadowed part of the cave, and a haunting presence. These ancient sort of roots and mold and grime and other things have grown in this chest. You can tell it's been there for ages. Thaden reaches out and he opens the chest, and as he opens it, looks inside, he hears this click as he lifts out what was inside of it, and a pressure plate beneath what was inside of the chest depresses with this metallic snap, and he barely has time to react. He has to roll an awareness test. He has rolled a total of 9 shields from gray and black die. He has an awareness of 5. So he was clearly just distracted by the zombies behind him. Rolls a 9. He should have gotten under a 5. And the spike, the chest closes down on his arm. Does 3 damage and renders him unable to move freely. But he does have a sack, a gold piece. Meanwhile, High Mage Quillen crosses the chamber to the north, takes a couple of the zombie bodies, or the goblin bodies, and moves them out of the way because he had noticed a bluish light kind of glowing between some of the limbs of the bodies that were in that pile, and he finds this crystal staff that was lodged underneath the zombies there, and it's glowing this kind of pulsing bluish energy, and he picks it out, and he can feel this malevolent power in the staff. It's enough to know that this is what is powering the zombies and creating them. So he does a quick knowledge test, and he rolls a 3. Knowledge is 5, so he got under that, so he knows that he has to break the staff in order to sever the... He smashes it with a flash of dark light. The magic dissipates harmlessly in the air. The other the zombie that was about to attack, collapses into arm. The chamber falls silent for just a second, allowing everyone to catch the shadows settle. Alma picks up a torch, and then the torch, cave walls, shadows dancing, and then at the farthest edge of the eastern chamber, partially illuminated by the flickering light and luminescence from this fungi that's growing at the eastern side, they hear this growl and these glowing reddish eyes in the distance about 30, 45 feet away from them. And out of the darkness, a creature from Nightmare, jaws hanging open, yellow cracked fang glistening in the firelight, and on its side is worn away. It's almost like a zombie dog. You see the ribs, the exposed flesh and muscle. Half of its face is a skull. The other half looks almost like a lion, like a cross, like an undead zombie lion dog. And its growl fills the chamber. This is a bar guest. Alma Grimstone moves swiftly, her footsteps quiet on the stone floor. She crosses the room. She stands beside Mage Quellen, and she looks over the bodies, kind of takes in the situation. She pulls out another vial, and she mixes another elixir. She glances up at Quellen in anticipation, and that's her round. That's her turn. Now the bar guest is known as a black dog, and certain fearful wits talked about it. Tavern across Terranoth, adventurers who've seen them and lived to tell the tale. It's well known in some of the darkest of this land. These hellish hounds are spectral predators that lock onto a sense of prey, and relentlessly the Bargus advances. Ghastly snarl echo through the halls. It lets out a sickening, bone-chilling howl. Uses his howl ability. Reverberates through the chamber. Sound twisted with malice, dark magic. The creature stayed back from the party's kind of direct line of attack. What it needs to do for each hero within 3 spaces of the Bargus, they have to test willpower. If you fail, you suffer 1 fatigue. And then here, in this case, way the Road to Legend requires is that they have to roll an additional damage. Here I'm going to fully admit that I screwed up. I did not take into account that the zombie encounter actually places the number of zombies for you. Here, it actually says to place the Bargus group with respecting group limits. So in Descent, depending on the number of heroes, that dictates how many particular monster you encounter. Here I just put down 1. My mistake. I definitely won't make that mistake again. But if you're playing for yourself, you need to recognize that the app, at least for the tutorial, places the zombies for you, but it doesn't necessarily place the number of Bargas. In this case, I just put 1. And I do that in a minute with another creature encounter momentarily. But no matter, we're moving on. This creature's goal was to remain in sight close enough to release the howl without engaging in combat. So it has to spot the closest hero, and it basically shifts to a position that keeps them within line of sight and within those spaces, and it just doesn't advance close enough counterattacks. Mage Quellen sees that dust-covered jar that we had seen before, discarded in a corner. It's large and has deep cracks, snaking along its sides. He opens the jar, peers inside, and he sees this faint bluish glow, and nestled at the bottom is a small stamina potion that whatever magical energy was creating the stamina potion, keeping it or giving it its magical healing properties. He picks it up and pockets it. Very fortuitous. Sir Valadier braces himself, uncorking the elixir that Olma had just brewed for him, chucks it back, rolls a red die, and recovers 3. So he recovers 3 health. He takes effects at once, his wounds knit together, kind of newfound sort of energy, like he just downed a Red Bull or something. Turns his gaze to the Bargus, tightens his grip on his sword, and is ready for the Bargus lets out a sinister growl. Valadier draws near. The Bargus springs into action, leaping forward to engage. He has to roll 1 red and 1 blue die. He does, and he gets 4 damage with a +1 damage because of the surge enhancement. Valadier's shield offers no protection, and he takes the entire brunt. So the Bargus slams into Sir Valadier, bites down on his leg, driving him back. Valadier says, "Come now, puppy. You can do better than that." The Bargus isn't finished. Rears back on his hind legs and slashes down with his claws and rolls 3 damage, 1 shield, so a net of 2. And Valadier manages to deflect most of it with the shield, The Barghest's teeth still tear at him, leaving these deep gashes across his armor. Valadar staggers. It's kind of labored. He now has a total of 8 out of the 12 health on his card. He's not doing great. Valadar readies his worn greatsword, swings it again with all of his might, but the creature is just quicker than you would ever think possible. His first strike went wide. Creature dodging out of the way. The blade slices towards the air. Readies a second attack. 4 damage. The Barghest's hide. He rolls a 3 defense. He moves in such a way that the blade connects, but it's more the blunt side of the blade, and it slices a little bit. But because the creature is already dead anyway, it just slices in, and bloodless muscle is exposed for a net of 1 damage. They managed to get himself out of the trap that he had sprung, but he's already suffered 9 damage. So he reaches into his pouch, he draws out the health potion that he had found, deep red liquid that shimmers, and he chucks it back, and this warmth kind of spreads through his body, and he recovers all of his health. And now I had forgotten at this point the disease condition that he had gotten before. So I rolled 2. The first he failed, so I gave him an additional fatigue. We're kind of going back and retconning a bit. And then the second one he actually passed, so he shook off the condition and purged it from his body. So he hadn't really used any fatigue at this point because of my forgetting to use those abilities. But he only had 1 fatigue anyway, so it really didn't actually make a difference. But it drains him a bit, but he's still ready to fight. So then High Mage Quillen, he summons his pet rock. So he uses his Terra Call, and this allows him to exhaust the card and place a summoned stone in an empty space within 3 spaces of him. And while the card is exhausted, means you just basically flip it over or turn it to the side. One of your summoned stones can perform an attack during its activation using one of your equipped magic weapons. So he can summon this stone guardian. So in beside the Barghest, this swirling kind of magical rock about the size of a small 3-foot maybe boulder appears in the air, and it swirls with the mystical blue energy. And the summoned stone behaves like a familiar. Like I said, it's a pet rock. It can be an obstacle or it can attack. And certain attacks can be positioned in relation to the stone as opposed to the relation to Quillen's. So you can do some cool positional attacks with it that I frankly haven't figured out yet, but I will, dear watcher, I will. The stone possesses 2 movement, 2 health, and it's protected by just a single brown. With the stone sentinel in place, he raises his hand, summons the stasis rune once again, holds it out to the Barghest, and he rolls 3 range, 4 damage, and the Barghest defends with a roll of 2, and so it takes a net of 2 damage. The stasis rune energy, this time it's red. I think Quillen can change it according to his mood at the time, or is it? So here the energy rune shoots out, strikes the Barghest with a burst of power that forces it to stagger back on its hind legs and resists some of the attack, but still takes a net of 2. Olma Grimstone then narrows her eyes at the Barghest. She reaches into her satchel. She pulls out one of the smoking vials again. I think her hands can kind of find. She knows where everything is on it. She pulls out the vials, whips them together quickly, and tosses it through the air. But because of the flickering light, it altered the trajectory. Blue dye, and it came up empty, splashed and smashed the stone Barghest and shatters harmless. So right before the next attack, the Barghest, it stops kind of mid-snarl, and his body kind of goes rigid. Head turns in unison. Large, sinister eyes kind of fix on this hole, the area through which the heroes had entered. And then the Barghest yelps, turns, and dashes inside of the cave. You can barely see the small hole about maybe wide, escapes. And then behind, in the chamber that they first fell in, another rope uncoils into the dimly lit chamber. You hear it thumping against the stone floor. And then Thaden, who is beside the door, looks and sees these Medusa cultists slither down the rope, head first. Hair riding, with snakes. They coil down, and here the cultist lands next to the spot where Thaden had fallen. This is a Medusa cultist. Her eyes gleam with this venomous green light. Her skin is pale, scaled, has this grin across her lips. And then from the earth itself beside her, this golem comes out of the very rock of the cavern, hulking, standing easily 10, 15 feet high, towering, grotesque, has 4 arms that unfold of different types and shapes, all angles, glistening with crystals and things that are embedded in its rocky form, like a monstrous insect of some sort. It's bound together by these runes that pulse with this orange kind of etching throughout that, animating this form. Its eyes scan the room with this cold indifference. It's like a RoboCop or a Terminator, just scanning for the creature's gaze sweeps over the cultist on his side, settles on, shambles forward. So here, like I said, the apps indicates the monster tokens and then the monster. So again, the Medusa should have been a monster group. Won't make that mistake again, but this Golem is the boss monster, so that has a special +2 to its health, and it is a master Golem. So they barely have a moment to breathe. The air in the chamber is kind of growing heavier. They feel this weight of this dark energy settling around them, and then suddenly this unnatural scraping kind of like a blowtorch etching into the wall next to High Mage Quellen. And the crumbling wall next to him, these jagged red lines begin to appear as if someone were just carving them in the rock and claw, and a Mage Quellen will die. This message glows in this dark, red, ghastly, sickening light. And the narrator says the prophecy etched into the wall, and that's the later action that happens. So this is just one taste of it. Trust me, I've done this before. It gets worse. His face drains of color. He feels his chill kind of fall over him, and he knows he is doomed if he doesn't leave here. So he gets the terrified and the doomed condition. So with the doomed condition, each time you suffer one or more damage, you suffer an additional damage, and then each of your attacks gains a surge, and then you discard it. So it's just a one-time use condition. And with terrified, just means you cannot spend surges if you attack, and if there are no enemy figures in your line of sight, at the end of your turn you can discard the card or token. So you're basically terrified until you retreat far enough to get some enemies out of your line of sight, and then you can discard it on your next turn. So if you don't discard it, you can act, but you just can't spend surges, which can be, you need surges or you want them. So that is definitely not a good condition to have. Round 5. Sir Valadier raises a Horn of Courage, this relic that he had been gifted by his father, a relic crafted to rally his ally, darkest of moments, and then he blows through it. The horn's call echoes through the chamber, fills Théoden's heart with a renewed valor, strengthening his resolve. And so Valadier is going to grant a valor token to Théoden Mistpeak, which gets him just damage on his attack. The Golem stirs its massive arms, flexing, and then it advances toward Sir Valadier. Théoden closes the distance with a zombie, his hunting knife. Not sure what that's going to do against Rock, but here we are. Listen, Firelight moves swiftly, aiming for some sort of weakness. Creature's form attacks, rolls 3 damage. The Golem deflects 2. He spends his Valor token to add 1 additional damage, so a total of 3. His blade manages somehow to strike inside of a chink inside of the right inside of a rune, perhaps, that is right between two of the rocks where they come together. Chips the rock out, and the rune that was etched in the rock goes dark. You can tell he's done. Damn. The Medusa spots Sir Valadier within her sight. She rolls 1 blue, 1 yellow. She gets 3 damage, 1 surge. Valadier's defense or only 1. So her attack triggers the Immobilize effect, apparently. Immobilize means you cannot perform move actions or suffer fatigue to gain movement. So you can move up to your speed. You can suffer fatigue in order to move farther than your normal movement speed in a given round. So if in this case, his movement is 4. If you wanted to move 5 or 6, suffer 1 or 2 additional fatigue in order to do that mobile event. So the Medusa strikes Sir Valadier, freezes him in place. Olma focuses her efforts. She concocts another elixir, creates yet another one. She hands that to Sir Valadier. High Mage Quellen directs his summoned stone, moves it strategically closer to the Golem. Then summons his stasis rune again. Blast of green energy streaks across the cavern, rolls 2 damage, 1 surge. Can't spend that because of his terrified condition. Golem's stone body deflects all the damage, rolls 2 shields. This energy flickers against the form, can't pierce through. The runes on the body glow ominously, maybe like they light up as the rune energy hits it and perhaps imbues the Golem with additional power. Valadier standing firm before this Golem that towers over him, his eyes fierce with determination. He draws on the strength of his Horn of Courage, channels his power into his attack, grips his greatsword, swing overhead, and courageous howl, rolls 1 red, 1 blue die, gets 3 damage. He's going to use the Horn of Courage effect to add an additional damage, and I'm going to have him suffer an additional fatigue to add a surge, which gives him 1 more damage. And the Golem has no defense. His Valadier, his mighty greatsword, cuts deep into the Golem. Sparks fly through the cavern, lighting up briefly with a brilliant flash as the sword cuts into the neck. His attack is empowered by the ancient horn of his father before him. He gives a total of 5 damage. He raises his blade for a second strike, every muscle in his body straining as he unleashes this final blow. This time, he suffers an additional fatigue. The same 1 red, 1 blue die, gets a total of 4, including 1 from the fatigue. Again, no defense from the Golem, and with 1 final swing, the sword arcs overhead. A brilliant flash of sparks, light flashes from the runes that have been sliced by the power of Sir Valadier's swing. and shattered stone and metal fragments chip the greatsword again, scatter across the chamber, and the golem's limbs jerk, and then it collapses into a pile of rock. The golem falls. Medusa cultist, realizing her protector has fallen, God has forsaken her, he slithers back up the rope and away. Our heroes look around. Sir Valadir chuckles to himself. Well, now, that was quite a morning workout, wasn't it, friends? And he looks and he sees Ulma's shocked face looking up and see if some Greek god come to life. Looks to me like Splig may have led us into a trap, friends. Need to go back to town and rest up and figure out what our next plan is, yes? All of the heroes nurse their wounds, sip some of the elixir that Ulma had brewed for them, and make their way back toward the town of Tamalier, the next part of their campaign. And that's it, guys. That's the first quest in the Rise of All Goblins adventure. Now, after this, the party, it looks like, gets quest rewards here. We get fame of 5. We get 100 gold and 3 XP that we can spend, which we'll do in a minute. And we're going to head back to town to spend some of our hard-earned loot. So it says, after the death of King Valadir, the city of Tamalier became the first and greatest of the free cities. Travelers from around the world may be seen on her streets, and coins and languages from a dozen kingdoms are traded back and forth in her many markets. So we'll travel there and get a good night's rest. We arrive at the city, then a few things happen. We get our morale resets to its starting value, which the morale, again, is what we start out with in the beginning of the adventure, and once that drops, we lose. But we can return to the city if we ever run out of it. And our inventory gets renewed, so we can go shopping, which everybody loves. So here we have, looks like we have 528 gold, which is a pretty good haul for our first adventure outing with the Unbound heroes. I'm going to go buy some new loot, I think. It looks like in the shop right now they have Staff of Greyhaven, got a White Wolf Cloak, a Sunburst, Scorpion Helm, Trident. So I think I'm going to buy the Staff of Greyhaven for Quellen. Might sell this hunting knife. I don't think that Thaden's going to use that. I think he'll use the Trident instead. It's more his speed. And let's see what else. I think that's all I'm going to get for right now. I'm going to jump over to the skills training where we can spend our XP. Looks like you can get 3 XP to spend, either 3 level 1 skills, 1 level 3, 2 level 2, 1 level 1, etc. I think I'm going to go for Ulma with Herbal Lore, which allows me to discard 1 elixir token once it's exhausted, and then in addition to any other effect from the discarded elixir token, I can also discard 1 of my condition cards, so that's pretty good. So in addition to if I get a healing elixir and they down that, they can get rid of a condition, which might help. And I'm also going to get Inky Substance, like a good attack skill. I can exhaust this card to choose 1 monster within 3 spaces of me and place an elixir token on it. And then a hero targeting that monster with an attack can discard the elixir token before the attack roll to add an additional green power die to the attack pool. So that's pretty good. It's almost like maybe like Fairy Fire or something. The Inky Substance maybe has a glowing property to it or something. Makes the monster easier to hit. Now for Thaden, makeshift trap. Definitely get Hunter's Mark. Hunter's Mark allows you to exhaust the card during your turn to choose a monster within 3 spaces of a trap token and place 1 of your hero tokens on that monster's base, indicating it's been marked. The next hero to attack the marked monster adds 1 surge to the attack results. Pretty sweet. And then we're going to use Exploit, I think. I can perform an attack, and if the attack targets a monster within 3 spaces of a trap token, I can add 1 additional green die to the attack pool. And the attack gains weakened condition even if you don't deal any damage. Nice. With a weakened condition, you remove 1 shield from each of your defense rolls and 1 damage from each of your attack rolls. That is pretty critical. Moving on to Sir Valadir. Apologies to anybody named Chad out there who might be listening. It's all in good fun, my friend. We're going to use Living Legend and Motivating Chard. Living Legend seems like it's right up Sir Valadir's alley. I can exhaust this card when I would suffer any amount of damage from any source, and then I can spend up to 3 Valor to reduce the damage suffered by 1 for each Valor spent. So that is pretty critical, I think, for maybe like the last boss fight. So we're going to be fighting our way through a dungeon. getting Valor, and then maybe at the end, if I get hit with something big, I need to keep Valor up, then this Living Legend card will probably come in handy. Then we're going to do the Motivating Charge. I can exhaust this card to move up to my speed and perform an attack with a melee weapon. If the attack defeats a monster, each hero within 3 spaces can either gain 1 Valor or recover 1 Fatigue. That is actually really, really clutch. Yeah, that's going to be good. And then my man, Quellen. Just keeping in the Pet Rock theme. I'm going to go with Stone Tongue. I can have 1 additional summoned stone on the map at any time. And we're going to summon the stone. And they now have 3 speed. And in addition, each of the summoned stones add 1 additional gray die to their defense pool. So it starts out with a brown die and it ends up adding a gray. So that's pretty good. Keeps them up a little bit. And then we're also going to do Quaking Word. I can exhaust this to perform an attack with a magic weapon. Each attack gains a surge, and each monster figure within 2 spaces of a summoned stone tests their awareness, and each figure that fails is stunned. So we get another stun condition on the board, so that's pretty good. With the stun condition, the only thing you can do is exhaust it. You just got that. The only thing you can do, the only action you can perform on your turn while you have that card is discard it. So if you can get a monster stunned with one of those stones, in addition to everything else that's going on, I think we have a pretty solid party. So that's it, guys. We've leveled up, gone back to town, we've gotten some new gear. Then the next story quest appears. So what's cool about this Road to Legend app, it has a natural sort of living world type of feeling, because the story progresses in a certain time frame, and then you can do stuff while you wait for the story to progress. And so you can take on side quests, go back to town, and you can chill out for a week, and that advances time a week, or you can go do another side quest, and that takes a week each to do. So the next time we're going to go do some side quest action, and we're going to see what the world has in store for the Unbound heroes. But guys, that has been the very first episode. We are done. In the bag, baby. It's done. And if you stuck around this long, I appreciate you so much. Hard to put into words. Really do hope you come back for the next one. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed making it. And stick around. We're going to see what happens with Splig, see why he set this party up. I think he set him up to be ambushed, quite frankly. No other explanation for why they went into that cavern and just got mobbed. So I think Splig's up something. We're going to find out what that is next time on Unbound Heroes Tabletop. But y'all, the only way you're going to know what happens is if you like and subscribe to this channel. Because if you don't subscribe, how in the world are you ever going to know when the next video drops? The answer is you're not. So go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button now before you log off, or else you're not going to know how the story ends. Can't have that. So go ahead and do it now as this awesome music drops for the outro. See you guys next time.